2010. She finished in the top 3 of NXT Season 3, a season that was devoted to showcasing the divas. She was one of the more talented divas, one of the more athletically gifted, one of the quickest divas in the ring for her size and her ability in the ring. She was very limited against divas that had a significant size and weight advantage over her, but she was able to hold her own. On NXT Season 3, she finished in the top 3 with Naomi and Caitlyn, who had a number of things done with their characters when they came over from NXT, like Naomi is having done with her now as a heel character. But you can't tell me that AJ wasn't entertaining. She's far more entertaining than the majority of the divas that we see on there now, like Naomi. I mean, Naomi really is never going to get over as a heel character like AJ did. And to have AJ gone now and Naomi put at the forefront of the Divas division as a possible future Divas champion, that is absolutely ridiculous. This is how we're supposed to rebound off the loss of a diva like AJ. I mean, get real. It's time for us to get real as wrestling fans and realize the Divas division is never going to get out of this precarious position, this proverbial corner that's been backed into or left within, and it's all because AJ left. And this is the state the Divas division is left to recover from in the absence of AJ. This is why I think AJ owes us all an explanation as to why she left and left so suddenly. Was it a political issue? Was it because of an injury? Or was it because she had reached a pivotal point in her life and realized, she had done it all, been the Divas champion for 295 days in total. She'd held the title a total of 3 times. She had promised us all she was going to be a 4-time Divas champion, and she's here one day and gone the next. And as a result of this, I've been left very depressed with the release of AJ. Divas like Summer Rae and Sasha Banks and Charlotte from NXT, they have promising futures too, and this is where the opportunity is going to be capitalized on by these divas on NXT. This is why I say, it's time to get going with the NXT women's division. It's time to cross over for people like Sasha Banks and Charlotte and Bayley and see what they can bring to Monday Night Raw and Thursday Night SmackDown, because they have an incredible amount of talent. When the Divas division doesn't deliver every week when it comes to Layla and Emma, than the Divas division can offer when it comes to divas like Charlotte and Bayley, for instance, who have an incredible amount of talent. Sasha Banks, who recently won the NXT Women's Championship at NXT Rival a couple of weeks ago, definitely has a tremendous amount of talent. That's beyond me why she isn't on Monday Night Raw or Thursday Night SmackDown yet, especially with the release of AJ, this alleged retirement. This is the thing I can't get over about AJ, is how this is supposed to be a legit retirement. I mean, really, is this something that we're convinced of, or is this something that is just a bunch of crap that AJ has allegedly retired from the business? Because someone who's been in the business for 5 years, I mean, really, is that a career really worth looking back on, really worth reflecting back on? I mean, how many times did she hold the Divas Championship? 3 times is a far cry from Trish Stratus holding the Women's Championship, a total of 6 through 7 times. I mean, that's an incredible amount of times to hold a championship that was held by the likes of Alundra Blaze and the fabulous Moolah. A lot of people had the chance to hold that same championship that Trish Stratus held a number of times, 6 through 7 times in total. It's a difference of 3 times in comparison to AJ's Divas title reigns. She promised us, too, that she was going to be a 4-time Divas champion when she accepted the award for Diva of the Year at the end of 2014. She made an appearance at the end of the year at the Slammy Award show. She promised us all she was going to be a 4-time Divas champion. What happened to those promises? How come those promises were never followed through with? And how come she went to WrestleMania, defeated the Divas champion, currently Nikki Bella, has been reigning strong as the Divas champion since the December month of last year when she defeated AJ. She's been holding onto that title very diligently, and with rumors of the Bella twins coming up on their departure and the end of their contracts, I shudder to think what kind of state the Divas division is going to be left in the arms of people like Naomi and Sasha Banks and people to really run with the division. Hopefully they'll make the most of the opportunity. But I mean, what happened to AJ's promise of being a 4-time champion and the possible departure of the Bella twins? I mean, we have been led down a very false, promising road with AJ Lee. I mean, she's making a lot of false promises, and she hasn't been living up to her promises and her guarantees. With this release, it really shocks the wrestling business. It really shocks the women's division in WWE, and it opens up the door of opportunity, yes, for the NXT women's division and the door of opportunity for the TNA Knockouts division to really capitalize on the departure of AJ. I shudder to think what people like Terrence Renell are thinking about AJ with her retirement after going out on top as a 295-day reigning Divas champion. I'd love to hear what Terrence Renell and people like Awesome Kong and Havoc, representing the TNA Knockouts division, would have to say about someone like AJ. I would venture to say that their thoughts on someone like AJ and how she handled her retirement will be definitely something worth not missing and hearing, because from their perspective, definitely it's not really worthy of talking about how AJ kind of just left us in the dark. You know, she was here 1 minute and gone the next. And it's very rarely you hear me criticizing someone like AJ, and it's only because I was a huge fan of AJ and everything she brought to the Divas division. And I think that AJ is someone you could have easily got 5 or 6 more years out of, as opposed to her just 5 years she was with the WWE from 2010 to 2015. She could have easily remained under contract till at least 2020 and got an additional 5 years on her resume. In her resume, she has a tremendous amount of accolades, but it definitely is no comparison when you talk about someone like a Fabulous Moolah or an Alundra Blaze or a Trish Stratus or Alita. It's a far cry from what they accomplished, and I don't think that AJ, as a result of this, maybe one time she could have considered in the same category as a Trish Stratus. She still had a long way to go, but not now with how she handled her retirement. Here one day and gone the next. And this is one of the rare video blogs that I'm dropping criticism towards AJ. I wish that we had something more promising to talk about in relevance to AJ, but unfortunately we don't. The only thing we have to talk about now is the statement that's very brief that's been posted by WWE.com, basically just wishing AJ the best in her future endeavors, like they have all the release talents over the years. And they usually release it a couple of days after they go public with the release of a certain superstar or a diva, like we've seen so many times over the years. I think in the summer of 2004, 2005, we saw up to 15 cuts/releases in 1 week. That was amazing. And they released this huge list of talents that had been released that included names like Chris Masters, Eugene, Jackie Gata, Charlie Haas. They were all released in one shot, and that was one of the biggest strings of releases I can remember covering as a radio host and journalist over the years that I've been covering professional wrestling. And nowadays, even though with the releases being very rarely talked about on WWE.com and professional wrestling news websites, we're still hearing about them. And AJ, unfortunately, is the most recent one that we have to talk about and profile. And I wish we didn't have to, because I was a huge fan of AJ. I'll continue to be a huge fan of AJ, no matter if we see her in WWE again on TNA or somewhere on the independent level. Another thing that's being talked about is how she probably left the business because of her relationship with CM Punk, and now WWE have no plans of re-signing CM Punk because he's going to the MMA and the UFC. I respect Mr. Punk's decision to leave WWE and go to the MMA and the UFC if he wants to do that and fight in the octagon and put himself in a jeopardized position, because I don't think he's going to be able to handle himself in the UFC. That's my just perspective on CM Punk going to the MMA and the UFC, even though he's trained in jiu-jitsu, which is one of the more deadliest forms of combat anyone in the UFC or MMA could be trained in, with huge force behind your kicks and punches, having the force to drive someone allegedly through a window. I respect that about Punk, but I just don't think he's going to be able to handle his own in the octagon, because we've seen so many people of huge size like Brock Lesnar and Dave Bautista attempt this, and they've been able to do it. And usually the ones in the UFC who do survive are someone who either has, a significant size or strength advantage, or someone who has a tremendous amount of years of experience, who is an average built individual, like the individual that took out Brock Lesnar when nobody thought he was going to do it. When everybody least expected it, here comes this average built individual. Nothing special about him. He knocks out Brock Lesnar in less than a couple of minutes, and he's UFC champion, and he challenged Brock Lesnar again. Lesnar goes elsewhere, back to the WWE, and goes right back on top as WWE World Heavyweight Champion. It's usually those of significant size and strength advantage, or someone who has a tremendous amount of years of experience. And Punk has neither. He has no size or strength advantage, and he has no years of experience on people who have probably been with the UFC and MMA for, let's say the last 10 or 15 years. If Punk had that, I'd say he'd had a better chance of being a UFC or MMA fighter, but because he doesn't, my future for Punk in the UFC and MMA is definitely doubted in comparison to a future that he could have had with WWE, and I think that's why AJ held on for as long as what she did. I thought that maybe she, thought that Punk had a future with WWE, and she held on. Maybe one day he would come back and they would work together again on the same platform, on the same level, definitely higher than what they debuted at in 2010 for Punk, 2006, a difference of 4 years between CM Punk and AJ. AJ's situation kind of puts me in mind of the Kelly Andrew Martin situation from 2008, 2009. Andrew Martin was released from WWE a couple of years prior to his death at age 33. Unfortunately, Kelly held on, hoping that Andrew Martin was going to be re-signed by WWE, hoping they were going to bring him back. He died between then and the time they were going to bring him back, and he didn't get the opportunity to come back better probably than he ever would have been. So Kelly ultimately made the decision to go to reality television and have nothing else to do with WWE after she won the Divas Championship. It's very unfortunate how that happened to Andrew Martin, and it's very unfortunate how WWE doesn't want anything to do with CM Punk, with AJ holding on, hoping one day they were going to re-sign CM Punk. We all know about the personal life relationship that's existed between AJ and CM Punk for quite some time. They tried to exemplify that and examine it in a storyline involving Kane and Daniel Bryan. That went nowhere. But going back to how unpredictable AJ's character was, I mean, she gave us so many unforgettable moments. As the general manager of Raw, as a valet for people like Daniel Bryan and CM Punk, nobody knew who AJ was going to favor. She was coming up mimicking certain superstars like Daniel Bryan and CM Punk with their trademark promos, their trademark masks in the way of Kane, their trademark poses. It was amazing how AJ just exemplified so much great wrestling psychology. She was like a female Jake the Snake Roberts, in my opinion, a Jake the Snake Roberts or an Undertaker. She just had this understanding of psychology, which was amazing. And from a political standpoint, I don't think that anything with CM Punk should have influenced AJ to leave WWE. If anything, AJ should have came to this pivotal point in her career where she realized she had done it all, and she ultimately made the decision for herself based on what she wanted to leave the business, rather than what Punk probably was trying to influence her to do behind closed doors and over the phone, for phone conversations, Skype conversations, instant messaging conversations, whatever in the hell they were up to. I don't think Punk should have necessarily had an influence on AJ, because AJ should have influenced herself to make this decision after accomplishing ultimately just as much as what Punk did, if not more, from the point of view of a diva. And I'm sure if you interviewed a lot of divas on the current roster, they would say the same thing about AJ. Yes, AJ may have handled her retirement very unprofessionally in the eyes of someone like a Natalya or a Paige, but she definitely did accomplish a lot for the short time she was there in WWE. It makes you wonder, if AJ would have hanged on, say, till 2020, what would she have done in 2020? By then, she probably would have duplicated everything she would have done and achieved more with her career. And it's just unfortunate that AJ is no longer with us as a WWE diva and has gone elsewhere. Do I think we're going to see AJ again? If we don't see her as a wrestler, we're going to see her as a reality star. That's unfortunate.